Will Trump survive? Power, backlash, and the limits of political gravity. Donald Trump has always thrived where conventional political gravity failed. Scandals that would have ended other careers strengthened his base. Norms that constrained previous presidents became negotiable. Opposition often amplified rather than diminished his influence. Yet politics, unlike personality, ultimately runs on accumulation of consequences, fatigue, and structural resistance. As the United States approaches another electoral cycle, a question increasingly asked across political, diplomatic, and economic circles is no longer whether Trump can dominate headlines, but whether his political project can survive its own weight, a presidency entering headwinds. Recent polling suggests a presidency under pressure. Trump's approval rating has slipped to around 37%, with more Americans saying his administration has performed worse than expected than better. Only about 27% of Americans now support most or all of his policies, a decline even among Republicans who once formed his most reliable bloc. Pew Research Center. Confidence has weakened across key leadership measures, ethics, decision-making, and respect for democratic norms, with majorities expressing little or no confidence in his conduct as president. Pew Research Center. This erosion matters because Trump's political strength has never relied on broad popularity. It has depended on intense loyalty combined with sufficient institutional alignment. When cracks appear within his own coalition, political durability becomes uncertain. Republican strategists are increasingly warning of potential electoral backlash, with fears of a damaging midterm outcome if economic pressures and foreign conflicts continue to dominate headlines. The Guardian, Foreign Policy, Friction and Allied Resistance. One defining feature of Trump's current presidency has been confrontation, not only with geopolitical rivals, but with traditional allies. Strains within NATO relationships and disputes over military strategy have deepened transatlantic unease. Cabinet reshuffles and military leadership changes have added to perceptions of instability within national security structures. The Guardian. Meanwhile, controversial foreign interventions and aggressive geopolitical rhetoric have generated dissent even within conservative ranks, fracturing party unity ahead of elections. Al-Dasir B. Historically, American global leadership depended as much on alliances as on military strength. Alienation of allies carries a domestic political cost. Voters often tolerate disruption abroad only when economic and security outcomes improve at home. At present, many Americans appear unconvinced that those benefits are materializing. The tariff gamble and economic anxiety. Trump's economic doctrine has centered heavily on tariffs, framed as instruments of national revival, yet public confidence in his handling of trade policy has weakened significantly. A recent survey shows 63% of Americans lack confidence in his tariff decisions, and nearly 6 in 10 doubt his ability to make sound trade policy choices. Pew Research Center. Tariffs, once politically attractive as symbols of economic nationalism, now intersect with rising costs of living and economic uncertainty. When voters feel economic strain directly, ideological arguments lose potency. Economic dissatisfaction historically drives midterm outcomes more reliably than cultural debates. Style as substance and liability. Trump's political communication style, irreverent, combative, and often dismissive of institutional decorum, has long energized supporters who view traditional political language as artificial or elitist. Yet, the same qualities increasingly trouble moderate voters and institutional conservatives who expect presidential conduct to project stability, particularly during periods of international tension. What once felt disruptive now risks appearing erratic. Presidential rhetoric, critics argue, has at times resembled combative dinner table exchanges rather than the measured tone traditionally associated with the office. Whether voters interpret this as authenticity or recklessness may prove decisive. The ICE debate and historical anxiety immigration enforcement remains central to Trump's appeal. His supporters view strict enforcement as necessary sovereignty protection. Critics argue enforcement tactics risk normalizing excessive state power. Comparisons made by opponents between immigration enforcement agencies and historical authoritarian policing structures reflect the intensity of national polarization rather than consensus reality. Still, such rhetoric signals growing fear among segments of the population about civil liberties and executive power. This fear has crystallized into a growing civic refrain: "No king." The slogan captures anxiety not merely about policies, but about permanence, whether American democracy can resist personalization of executive authority. The paradox of the Trump coalition. Trump retains one undeniable advantage: a deeply loyal core electorate. Many supporters fear what they perceive as rapid cultural transformation, expanding liberal social norms, institutional feminism, and global ideological shifts that they believe marginalize traditional identities and economic stability. For these voters, Trump represents resistance to cultural acceleration as much as political leadership. This loyalty has repeatedly insulated him from political collapse. But loyalty alone does not guarantee electoral success. Elections are decided at the margins, among independents, moderates, and economically anxious voters whose allegiance shifts with perceived competence rather than ideological alignment. Can Trump become permanent? Speculation about a lifetime presidency reflects broader anxieties about executive power rather than realistic constitutional probability. The US constitutional system remains structurally resistant to permanent rule, relying on elections, courts, federalism, and institutional fragmentation. The greater question is subtler. Can Trumpism outlast Trump? If electoral setbacks arrive, particularly a loss of congressional control, institutional constraints will intensify rapidly. Legislative opposition, judicial challenges, and party recalibration historically follow midterm reversals. Political momentum can reverse faster than personality can compensate. The historical pattern. American political history shows recurring cycles. Outsider leaders rise during periods of dissatisfaction. Disruption reshapes political norms. Institutions push back. A recalibration phase follows. Trump may represent not an endpoint, but a transition, a stress test revealing tensions within American democracy. Globalization versus nationalism, institutionalism versus populism, stability versus disruption. Will he survive politically? The answer depends less on scandal or rhetoric than on three measurable forces: economic perception, whether voters feel materially better off; Republican unity, whether party elites remain aligned; institutional tolerance, how courts, allies, and bureaucracies respond to continued disruption. Trump's advantages remain formidable: name recognition, loyal support, media dominance, and political instinct. But political gravity eventually asserts itself through elections. The coming contests may not determine whether Trump survives personally in politics. He has already demonstrated unusual resilience, but whether his governing model can maintain national legitimacy. The larger question, the deeper issue, extends beyond one man. The United States is negotiating a larger identity crisis: how to balance populist anger, institutional continuity, global leadership, and domestic change. Trump did not create these tensions. He amplified them. Whether his presidency endures or falters, the forces that produced it will remain. And that may ultimately be the real story. Not whether Trump survives, but what America becomes after him.